So today is finally the long-awaited pantry reveal. I know so many of you guys have wanted this for so long, and I'm sorry it took me so long, but I wanted to live with the space for a little bit so that I could get it arranged and decorated how I wanted. I am going to break this video up into two different parts. So the first half is going to be me talking about the pantry and just the design aspects and stuff. And then the second half is going to be showing you what is on the shelves. So I'll try to put timestamps down below. That way, if you don't care about one or the other, you can go down below and look and see hopefully what you're looking for. You can find a timestamp for it. But if you've been here since the very beginning, then you know that in the kitchen, we originally built a corner pantry. So it was previously where the refrigerator sat in the kitchen, but it didn't work with the kitchen sink and the size and the layout of the kitchen. So we ended up moving it over to the opposite wall. So that's where the corner pantry was. It was what best fit in the kitchen layout that we wanted. After living with the pantry for probably about a year, we quickly realized that it was not near big enough. And especially because we were toying with the idea of having to lose our cellar access, because this pantry that we're standing in right now was originally supposed to be the downstairs bathroom, and that's exactly what they used it for many years. It was just so small, and it had two openings, two doorways to come in. So this was a doorway, and then back here behind me where the sink was, there was a doorway there. And with two doors, you didn't have any wall space in the bathroom, so you were very limited on where you could put what. We played with the idea of extending the bathroom back, and we would have gained about 3 feet, but we would have been covering up our access to the cellar. And we spent a lot of time going back and forth with the idea of making some kind of opening in the kitchen floor, but there was just nowhere good enough to put it because we didn't want to have to move the kitchen island to go down to the cellar every single time. I knew that we had a too small of a pantry, and we were probably going to be losing our cellar access, and it just wasn't going to work for us. So it was one of those things where I was just throwing around ideas, and I told Ben, I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if we could just turn the bathroom into a pantry instead? And there was no way to access it from the kitchen at that point in time. And he said, well, we can. He was like, all we have to do is just knock down that back wall. So we started talking about it, and logistically it was going to work. We decided that that was going to be our best option for keeping all of the storage that the house already had. That would let us keep the cellar as well as turn this bathroom into a pantry, and we would just move the bathroom somewhere else downstairs. I know a lot of people freaked out whenever I said that we were going to be turning the bathroom into a pantry, but we're not losing the downstairs bathroom. We're simply moving it to a bigger room in the house. So it's still going to be down here on the downstairs on the main level part of the floor, so we won't have to go upstairs always. I spent the better part of the past year thinking about and designing this pantry exactly how I wanted it, and I love that I got to do that slowly, and that's part of why I like doing DIY renovations so much. I started thinking of all the things that our kitchen lacks, and one of those things is the countertop space. Especially if we're having a get-together or a dinner, I wanted it somewhere where I could have appliances running, so like an Instant Pot or a crock pot. I wanted to be able to have the countertop space in here to put those appliances so that they could be cooking out of the way, and I could have access to my stove and the countertops in there and be chopping food and preparing food in there and not have to worry about those big appliances in the way. The other thing that I wouldn't necessarily say our kitchen lacked, but anytime that we would have big dinners, we always use real plates, real silverware, and then all of the cookware that we have also. So that is a lot of dishes, especially because I have a really large family. So whenever they all come over, that is a ton of dishes to do. Since we already had the plumbing stubbed up in here for the bathroom, and we already had the sink, so I decided, why not? Let's put a sink in the pantry so that we can do extra dishes. And it's worked out really well. If we have a family get together here, then somebody can do some dishes in the kitchen, and then we also have the pantry space in here to do dishes also. When I was designing this pantry, I wanted it to be a working pantry. So that meaning anything that is in this pantry, I do not want it to have to be pulled out and go taken to the kitchen, unless it's like the Instant Pot. Like if I'm just cooking, then I will take it in there usually and put all the ingredients in it, and if I just need it out of the way, I'll bring it in here and let it sit on the counter while it cooks or whatever. But as far as my KitchenAid, my espresso maker, the grain mill, I did not want to have to lug that all the way in the kitchen just to be able to mill my grains or mix up something in there. So I wanted it to be able to sit on the countertops in here and have plenty of space to still work around it, and that has worked so well. The pantry has become my baking area, and so all of my doughs and everything get mixed up in here, And then the pantry sink is right behind me, so all I do is wash the dishes in here. So this is essentially like a separate kitchen. Anything that's in here stays in here, and it works out really, really well. Since we were going to be turning the bathroom into a pantry, I knew I wanted to board up the doorways just because it would be taken away from pantry space in here, but then also we didn't really need an access from the main door, because if you go straight down here where this used to be, the entryway is on the other side of this, so whenever this was cut out you could look and see the front door. But now we've just closed it in and we have 3 full walls in here, and then we have a doorway which is right behind the camera. We started by closing up the doorways that were in the pantry, and that gave us a lot of room to work with. And we decided on beadboard paneling for the walls just because they're covered. As you can see, there is no need for us to spend 4 times the amount of money on the single pieces of beadboard. So we did have extra beadboard left over from the kitchen ceiling though, so we did put that on the ceiling. So the ceiling in here, which it makes sense because you can see it, that is actual beadboard, and then the walls are beadboard paneling. So I think the paneling was about $40 a sheet. So it definitely saved a lot of money. This room is a 7x8 and it does have shorter ceilings, so it has 7-foot 10-inch ceilings. So from what we found whenever we were ripping out and gutting the bathroom was that this was originally a porch, and they boxed it in and made it into a bathroom. The laundry room is right above us, so we couldn't raise the ceiling in here to give us more height for storage or anything, because then we would push the laundry room up. If we were to raise the floor in the laundry room, then you would have no ceiling space in there. So we needed to keep it as is. It was like that for a reason. So the ceiling in here is shorter. Like, I still have to have a step ladder to reach the very top shelf, but Ben can reach it perfectly fine, which he's 6 foot. So he has no issue, but like I said, I do need a step ladder. Shelving in here, we did just use 2x4s, and that was the main framing, because originally I wanted the corbels that you can get at Lowe's. I have them on a shelf in our kitchen, and they're $10 a piece, but they have a really nice look to them. But the way that those are made and made to hang, they're not the strongest, so we decided to not go with that because I knew I would be putting a lot of weight on these shelves. So we did do the 2x4 framing underneath, and then this front board is just to hide all of that framework. In the corners by the doorway, we did have to put supports, but other than that, that was the only support that we had to put in that was vertical and not horizontal, so that is not really hidden, but it does blend in with the wall pretty good. The color that we used on the wall was Benjamin Moore Springfield Sage, and I did use a satin finish. And if I forget to mention anything in this video, then there is a blog post that goes along with this video, so it completely walks you through the pantry, and it has all the links to the material that we used. Hopefully that answers any of your questions over there. I will have a frequently asked questions box on there so that any questions I get, I can go and add the answers in over there. For the counters, we did frame those up with 2x4s also, and then they are setting on 4x4 legs. So the sink is also supported with 4x4 legs, just because the sink is so incredibly heavy that it needed a 4x4 support. So the 4x4s are supporting that. And then for the countertops, we decided to do oak boards, and we treat them just like you do butcher block. Even though we didn't do butcher block, we just treat it the same. The stain that we used was not food safe wood stain, because the one that we had previously used is now recalled, so they don't even sell it. So I did just use dark walnut or special walnut. I think it's dark walnut. It was not food safe, so do that at your own discretion, and I'm not telling you to do that, but that's just what I did. And then I sealed it with the butcher block oil. So I believe the brand is Howard's. I really like that. I use it on all my cutting boards and all my countertops, including in our kitchen. So they have held up great over the past 2 or 3 years, however long we've had the kitchen. And I've had no issues. Every once in a while, I'll just go and reseal them if they start looking dry or they no longer like wipe off as easily. I'll go and reseal them, and it just takes a little light coat of the oil. For the flooring in here, we did go back with poplar, just like in the kitchen, but unfortunately we were out of that flooring, and that came out of an old house that we got the flooring from, and we planed it down and refinished it. But this flooring is new poplar, so it is more yellow, but we're hoping it will match up with the kitchen floor pretty well. But we're not really sure yet, just because we have not done the hallway where the cellar is, and that is what actually meets up with the kitchen, not the pantry itself. We used the same polyurethane for floors on this floor that we did for the kitchen, and I'll link that down below for you guys. And since we did facial nail the kitchen floor, we wanted to do that same thing in here, so we did end up doing the facial nails in here also. I think the last thing decor-wise that is part of the pantry is the light fixture, which that was a gift from my sister-in-law for Christmas. She just bought it off of eBay, so I don't have a link for that. But then the fabric of the curtains, I didn't want to do doors for the cabinets just because I felt like it would be so hard to get the appliances, because they are larger appliances, and then also all of my 5-gallon buckets are stored underneath. So I wanted to be able to slide them in and out pretty easily without having to deal with doors. And one of the biggest reasons was because of mice. So if we leave food that is in a package and we do not put it in a glass jar, within a week or two we are going to have mice. It is just a problem. If you've ever lived on a farm, you know how it is. There's field mice everywhere. We have stray cats that run around. They're not our cats. We have no cats. They just get dropped off here or wander in, but we do see them all the time catching mice. So they're doing a good job, and maybe we need another cat or two. But that is just one of the biggest problems that we have. So I honestly did not want cabinetry on the bottom because it is so hard to clean. So I wanted to be able to just raise up the curtains in here, pull everything out, and sweep and mop, and it not be an issue. But I'm so happy with my decision of going with fabric curtains in here. It's just simple, and it adds a softness in here that I don't think the cabinetry would add, just because it's going to be hard wood material instead of a soft fabric material. I have to set up an extra light in here just behind the camera so that you could see better in here, because the pantry does show up really dark on camera, but it is not that dark in person. It's just because of the paint color, but it is plenty bright in here to see what you're doing, so we don't need to add extra lights or anything. It's just on camera it looks weird. The pantry sink I actually got from a reuse store, and I paid $12.99 for it. I bought it forever ago, and we've just been holding on to it because I'm pretty sure I bought it with intentions of using it in our summer kitchen, but it ended up working out perfect in here. It is a vintage cast iron sink. It doesn't have all the fancy like boards at the back to it or anything. It is just a simple cast iron sink, but it was only $12.99 whenever I bought it, so I could not pass it up. And it has worked so perfectly in here, and it goes so good in here in the pantry. And then the faucet, it wasn't my first choice of a faucet, but I was not ready to pay the at least $400 for a brass faucet right now. So we just went to our local hardware store and bought the most vintage looking faucet that they had, and it was this one. It was $60. It will probably end up being replaced further down the line, but not right now. We just needed something to get us by until we could get the faucet that we need. But like I said, it was a minimum of $400, and we were not looking to spend that right now. We have other things that we need to work on. For the most part, the majority of all of this stuff has been collected over the last 8 years. We've brought a lot of stuff from our old house, and then some things were brought in that I did thrift recently. You'll see that in next week's video. But all of the jars and canisters you see, those have all been collected over many years. I have not bought those recently. The majority of them came from our old house actually. The rug I picked up at a thrift store years ago. I actually used it in our last house, but it was kind of small, so I hadn't found anywhere to use it in our new house yet. But it just fits this space perfectly. The green, and then also how small it is, it fits perfectly. Since I cannot reach the top shelf, I do need a step stool or a step ladder. So my mom and I were recently at Goodwill, and we picked up this step stool, and it works perfectly. It's from the Magnolia line at Target, but it matches the pantry paint perfectly. I did not have to paint it or anything, but whenever I'm not using it, I'll usually just fold up the bottom of it and then store it out of the way. But I think that is it for all of the design things in here. So now I'll take you and show you everything that's on the shelves. So starting on this side, I have just a coffee mug rack, a salt shaker, and then an espresso maker, as well as a coffee bean grinder. I just hung some extra mugs underneath with these white hooks. They screw in perfectly, and I'll use them in our kitchen and as well as in here now. They are so cheap. I think they're like $3 or $4 for like probably 50 of them. They're so cheap and they're so handy to have. This is where I typically put all of my appliances whenever I bring them in here. I wanted a spot left open here on the counter so that I would not have to constantly be moving things around. I wanted just a blank space so that I could bring a dehydrator, a Instant Pot, crock pot, anything in here and just set on the counter to use. So I wanted this left open, but this artwork was just so pretty. It is an actual oil painting. But I wanted to hang this oil painting somewhere. I've had it for years. I bought it at Goodwill years and years ago. I had it hanging in our old house, but it is such a small piece of artwork that it's hard to see. But in here it works perfectly because it is so small, but this is a small area and it's right at eye level. Your eye is drawn to it, so I love having this here. In this corner, I just have a bottle of cleaner next to the sink. I have a bowl of garlic and purple onions, a lamp, a bowl of onions, and then just a cutting board. So I wanted to stick with something very simple. Like I said, this whole pantry is just simple. That is just the theme of this pantry. In the sink, I just have a dish strainer, and then of course the bottle of cleaner, some soap and a sponge, and the drain plug. So not much on the sink. I just wanted it simple. I'll probably get me a little basket just to keep the small stuff in. I know I will get questions. These plugs are GFCI enforced. I asked my brother, and he is an electrician. He's the one that wired all this in. So we did not do it ourselves. So it is done by an electrician and it's done correctly. I'm not sure the logistics of it, but I do know that they are GFCI enforced. But behind the sink, I just have a pair of scissors. And then in this basket, I just keep, I know it's kind of hard to see, but I just keep plastic bowl covers in here. In this corner, I just have my grain mill, and I know it is so shadowy. It's because of this light that I have set up in here trying to show, but it is not this dark in person. I don't understand why it shows up so dark on camera. I know a lot of people will suggest it under the cabinet lights, and we may do that eventually, but as of right now, I don't really see a need in it unless I start showing this a lot on camera, which maybe I will just for my YouTube videos. But in real life, there's no need for extra lighting in here, but I may do it just for the sake of videos. I don't know yet. Back here, I just have a hot pad hanging as well as a scoop for my grains. I have einkorn flour, soft white wheat, and then hard white wheat. And as you can probably gather from just this little section, this is my baking section. So I do have a marble board here, and I just use that to work my dough on if I need to take it out of the bowl and work it or need it, whatever I need to do. I have a flour sifter, a thing of eggs, as well as a little crock with some spoons, and then my KitchenAid with all of the attachments. I just keep those all in the bowl, and then whenever I use them, I just take them out and set them on the counter. But this is probably one of my favorite things in the whole entire room is this salt cellar. It does have iodized salt in it just because I use iodized salt with all my baking, because the Redmond real salt does leave a gritty texture in my breads and baked goods. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that. Moving on up, I just have a Lazy Susan in this corner, and I just have baking powder, baking soda, yeast, my extracts on here, and this is salt, but it really needs to be taken out because I just now put the salt cellar in here, so that could be used for something else now. But I like having all this here just because it is what I use most with baking, so everything in this little corner is what I use most often. This is regular sugar, brown sugar, powdered sugar, and then in front of the sugars, I keep measuring spoons and measuring cups. That is just so handy to have right there. They're so easy to grab. This is a stack of my ball canning books. They don't stand up very well, so I decided to lay them down. And then this is my favorite baking dish. I actually use it mostly as a bowl, and it does have a lid, so it's nice to put my doughs in and then just cover. But I have it stacked like this because sometimes I don't need the lid. So I stack the lid on the bottom, that way I can just grab it if I need it. I have Redmond real salt, canning salt, and then iodized salt. In this basket, I just have my food scale, some cupcake liners. I have some beef gelatin. I know it's hard to see in there, but I don't really keep much. It's just random stuff. Some flaky sea salt and my baking scale. In this corner, I just have another Lazy Susan with maple syrup, honey, molasses, some honeys that are running low, and some peanut butter. So not much kept on there, but just some simple ingredients. On this shelf, I keep some of our extra cookware. So this is one of my bigger Dutch ovens. This basket just has cleaning rags and cleaning towels in it. So right above the sink, just easy access, makes it easy just to reach up and grab. Over here, I just have one of my bigger crock bowls. I don't really use it for much, but whenever I'm mixing up a big batch of something, I do like to have it. And then one of my shorter Dutch ovens. some extra egg cartons. Those are some instant mashed potatoes as well as popcorn kernels. In this basket, I just keep all of our sauces. So ketchup, mustard, some barbecue, coconut aminos, any kind of sauce that's in a bottle, it goes in that basket. It makes it easy to just throw in there and keep it out of the way. And all of that stuff I do try to keep in a basket. One, because it's consolidated. It makes it so easy to come in and find what you're looking for. And plus the basket just makes it cute. Over here above the espresso maker, I just have some teas. So this is black tea, some red raspberry leaf tea, and there's some other different various teas in there. Whole coffee beans, and all of my cookbooks. On the next shelf up, I have snacks in that jar, so like meat sticks, some fruit strips, dates, a butter churn, our coffee percolator, an extra yellow bowl, some dry pasta and rices, my wood dough bowl, some empty glass mason jars are on the middle right here. I just keep some extra ones because if I buy something from the store, like extra rice or whatever, I just want to be able to throw it in these jars and not have to worry about going down to the cellar to go get some. In the basket in the middle, I just have some Ziploc bags. I have some oxygen absorbers, some bread bags. All of our storage stuff is in there. So gallon size bags, all different kinds of bags. In this corner, I have some crock bowls that are really shallow. They make really good pasta making bowls. And then I have some pectin, dried buttermilk, cornmeal, an extra yellow bowl, oats, white chocolate chips, cocoa powder, more yellow bowls, cornstarch, and then sucanat sugar. The idea behind this entire wall right here was to serve as my baking corner, just so that I never have to move anything to the kitchen. So I wanted to be able to prepare all my doughs and stuff right here. So far it has worked really, really well. And having all the bowls and different things within arm's reach at all times makes it so easy, as well as being able to see all the ingredients and have them right here makes it so easy. But as far as all of this food storage goes, there is extra of everything down in the cellar. So I just keep 1/2 gallon mason jar up here at all times. The rest is down in the cellar. For the food that is on the top shelf, of course, we have our home canned food on this side. And then on this side over here, it is the store-bought food. Of course, I'm not going to go through and mention everything. It is just basic store-bought food. But if you are interested in hearing the different things that we have canned, you can go back and watch my cellar video that was posted last week. I'll link it down below for you guys. Because in that video, I do go through and tell you everything that we have canned. But on the top shelves, it is just our canned food storage. And I do only have 3 of each thing up here. The rest of it is kept down in the cellar, and I'll just go down and get it as I need it and then bring it up. This back wall mostly just serves as extra storage space, so like for the jars and then for the extra cookware and stuff. This wall serves as, the thought behind it was that it was going to be more for my food stuff. So it's got my recipe books and then like my little drink station, and then as well as all of my pasta and rices. So I just raised up the curtain, but underneath of the KitchenAid mixer, I have a shelf under here. There is a 4x4 post, and it is what supports the countertop. So we built a shelf connecting to it, so it is directly halfway of the one countertop. So I have coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, maple syrup, peanut butter, beef broth, and then collagen peptides. On the next shelf up, I have coconut water, some juices, teas, more juice, lemon juice, and then vinegar. So the shelf is very simple, but it is perfect for all of our needs and all of our extra things that we just don't want stored up top. So directly underneath of the grain mill, I have 5-gallon buckets. I have several of them that store all of our grains. Starting over here underneath the sink, I do have corn. I have soft white wheat, 2 buckets, hard white wheat, 2 buckets, 2 buckets of einkorn, a bucket of sugar, and then this is extra pasta on top, and then dry beans in the bottom bucket over here. In this back corner, it is empty. I have all that space, and it does go deep in there past the post. So all that is empty. I haven't needed to store anything in there yet. My food processor and my blender is back in there too. It's kind of hard to see. It is so dark under there. In there is a blender also, as well as the food processor and the dehydrator. Next to that, I have a mini fridge. It is the one that was underneath our kitchen sink. I did just bring it in here because I was not using it underneath the kitchen sink. We used to drink pop, and we quit drinking pop about back in July. So July of 2024, we quit drinking pop. So it just sat empty under there, and we weren't buying pop. It was empty. We bought it as a drink fridge. So now I use it for milk, and mostly just milk. Milk is really the only thing I've ever stored in there, just because that's what I need for all my baking and my espressos also. On this bottom shelf, I just have a toaster. So under there, we just have a microwave and an Instant Pot. So that is all that is stored under there. But that is going to be it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed a look into our pantry. But thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys will like and subscribe.